When was the last time she truly looked at you with respect? Think about it. Does she still admire you the way she once did? Or have you noticed the shift, the sharp tone, the small jokes, the subtle eye rolls? Most men don't lose respect because of cheating or big fights. No, that's obvious. What really kills you are the quiet moments, the little cuts, the times you forgive without consequence because you don't want conflict. You call it patience. You call it maturity. But in her eyes, every time you let it slide, you're shrinking. And that's the tragedy. Respect doesn't disappear in fire. It disappears in silence. Not in one betrayal, but in 1,000 tiny cuts you didn't even feel until there was nothing left. One day, you wake up and realize you're not the man in the relationship anymore. You're just there, present, but invisible, providing, but not respected, breathing, but already forgotten. Stay with me, because once I show you the first test, the one that hides in plain sight, you'll understand how men go from being admired to being nothing. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. The first test is one most men never recognize until it's already stripped them bare. It doesn't come with yelling. It doesn't come with slamming doors. It hides behind an excuse society has trained you to accept without question. Her hormones, her cycle, her time of the month. Now listen, no one denies women face real physical and emotional challenges. That's not the issue. The issue is control, because here's the truth, she can control it. Watch her at work. Watch her with her boss. Watch her with strangers at the grocery store. She doesn't explode on them. She doesn't mock them. She doesn't tear them apart. She saves that behavior for you. And right there is the calculation. Maybe conscious, maybe unconscious, but it's a choice. She's decided you're the safe target. You're the one who will accept it. You're the one who will smile and say, "It's okay. I understand." Every time you do that, you're not being compassionate. You're telling her, "My dignity is disposable." You're saying, "My respect costs less than your excuse." Not patience, weakness, not compassion, submission. And women smell weakness the way sharks smell blood, deep down in that primal part of her brain. She's filing you under a category you never want to be in the man she can step over without consequence. And it doesn't stop there. It escalates. What starts as sharp words in private becomes raised voices in public. What begins as one-off moments turns into a pattern. Each month, each cycle. She tests you a little more, and each time you swallow it, each time you let it slide, you carve away another piece of your authority. Respect doesn't collapse in a single moment. It erodes, slowly, quietly, until the day she no longer looks at you with admiration, until the day her eyes don't carry respect, only tolerance. Until the day you realize you're still in the relationship, but you're no longer the man in it. Here's the cold truth: when you excuse disrespect, you don't gain her love, you lose her respect. And when respect is gone, nothing else matters. Not attraction, not affection, nothing. And if this already sounds uncomfortably familiar, good. That means you're awake. Don't scroll. Don't click away. Because the next test, it doesn't hide in private. It explodes when alcohol strips away the mask. And if you think forgiveness will save you then, you're dead wrong. If the first test hides behind excuses, the second one rips the mask off completely. It happens when she drinks. And this test destroys more men than almost anything else. You've seen it. She has a few too many. And suddenly, the truth comes spilling out. Not playful teasing, not harmless jokes, but sharp words that cut you down. Maybe she mocks your body. Maybe she laughs about what happens in the bedroom. Maybe she throws your insecurities into the open, the ones you trusted her with in private. And she does it in front of everyone. Friends, family, strangers. While they sit there in silence, awkward, uncomfortable, pretending not to hear. And the next day she waves it off. I was drunk. That wasn't really me. But here's the truth. Alcohol doesn't invent new feelings. It reveals them. Alcohol doesn't create a new version of her. It uncovers the real one. The filter is gone. The mask is gone. What comes out when she's drunk is what she truly thinks, when no restraint is holding her back. I knew a man like this. On paper, he was everything a successful business, respect in his community, admired by peers. But when his wife drank, she shredded him. She mocked his confidence. She attacked his manhood. She humiliated him in front of people who once looked up to him. And every single time, he forgave. Every single time, he believed the apology. That wasn't really me, but it was her. It always was. And do you know what happened? The attacks got worse, more cruel, more public. Why? Because she learned there were no consequences. She learned she could unload her contempt, humiliate him, and he would still be there in the morning, smiling, pretending nothing happened. And here's the harsh truth. When you forgive this without consequence, you don't look noble. You don't look loving. You look weak. You look like a man who can be torn apart without fear. And once she sees you that way, once she knows she can strip you in front of everyone, and you'll still take it, respect is gone. And when respect dies, the relationship is already over. This is why so many men fade in silence. They mistake tolerance for strength. But tolerance without consequence is weakness, and weakness is the one thing she cannot respect. Stay with me, because the next test doesn't just attack you, it attacks you through your own children. And when you fail this one, the cost is far greater than your pride. If alcohol exposes the truth in public, the third test cuts even deeper because it happens in front of your children. And this one doesn't just wound your pride, it shatters your role as a father. Picture this. You set a rule. No dessert before dinner. No video games on a school night. No staying up past bedtime. You lay down the boundary because that's what a father does. And then she steps in, right there, in front of your kids. She breaks it. She gives them what they want. She overturns your decision as if your word means nothing. On the surface, it looks small, maybe even playful. She's just being the fun parent, right? But underneath, something corrosive is happening. She's trading your authority for cheap approval. She's sending your children a message. Dad's rules don't matter. Dad's word doesn't count. Dad isn't the real authority here, Mom is. And children learn fast. They learn that your boundaries are negotiable. They learn that your decisions can be ignored. They learn that when push comes to shove, Dad is not the leader of the home. He's just the backup. And once that lesson sticks, it's almost impossible to undo. I've seen it happen. Not with explosions, but with erosion. A man wakes up one day and realizes his kids no longer come to him for answers. They don't seek his approval. They don't look to him for guidance. He's become the chauffeur, the ATM, the guy who fixes broken things. Useful, but not respected. Present, but not admired. And here's the brutal truth: most men let it slide. They tell themselves it's not worth a fight. They convince themselves they're being patient, mature, understanding. But every time they swallow it, they chip away at their role as a father. Every time they forgive without consequence, they're complicit in their own erasure. Because when she undermines you in front of the kids, it's not just disrespect as a partner. It's a direct attack on your authority as a man. And if you allow it, you lose not just her respect, but your children's respect too. And when your own kids stop seeing you as an authority, you don't just lose influence, you lose your legacy. Stay sharp, because the next test doesn't just challenge your authority at home. It challenges your dignity in public. And when you fail that one, the whole world sees it. If losing authority in your home cuts deep, the fourth test slices even sharper because it happens in public. And when it happens, the wound doesn't stay private. Everyone sees it, everyone feels it, and everyone remembers it. Picture this. You're at dinner with friends. The conversation turns to goals, to ambitions, to dreams. You share something you're excited about, a project, a plan, maybe even a business idea. And then it happens. She laughs. Not the supportive laugh. Not the encouraging laugh. The sharp, dismissive laugh that says, "Yeah, right." And then she twists the knife. He's always talking about big plans, but nothing ever happens. Or, that's his new obsession. Next month it'll be something else. And the room goes silent. People shift uncomfortably. Someone changes the subject. And you force a smile. You laugh it off, because what else can you do? Call her out and look insecure. Start a fight in front of everyone. No. So you swallow it. But here's the cold truth. That moment wasn't harmless. That wasn't just a joke. It was a declaration, a message. She told everyone in that room she doesn't respect you. She told them it's safe to dismiss you. And worst of all, she told you she feels comfortable disrespecting you in front of witnesses because she knows you won't stop her. And every time you let it slide, you confirm it. Every time you brush it off with a nervous laugh, you reinforce the belief that humiliating you carries no price. And once that door is open, respect doesn't just slip, it evaporates. Public humiliation is one of the fastest ways a woman signals to the world that her man is beneath her. And trust me, people notice. Your friends notice. Your kids notice. Even strangers at the table notice. And you notice too, even if you bury it. Each time it happens, your pride takes a hit. And each time you forgive without consequence, you shrink a little more in her eyes. Not just in her eyes, in everyone's eyes. Because here's the reality when a woman mocks her man publicly. The audience takes its cue. They think, if she doesn't respect him, why should we? And once that dynamic sets in, you're no longer seen as a man to be admired. You're seen as a man to be pitied. Or worse, a man to be laughed at. That's the cost of letting public disrespect slide. You lose her respect. You lose the room's respect. And eventually, you lose your own. Stay with me. Because the next test doesn't just strip your pride. It strips something even more sacred, the privacy of your relationship itself. If public humiliation bleeds your pride, the fifth test cuts into something even more sacred, the privacy of your relationship. And once this boundary is broken, intimacy doesn't just weaken, it dies. At first, it looks harmless. She vents to her mom about a fight. She calls her best friend to complain about something you said. She posts a vague status online about being unappreciated, and everyone knows it's about you. You tell yourself, it's no big deal. Everyone vents sometimes. But then it grows. Her sister knows every detail of your arguments. Her friends weigh in on your marriage. Her coworkers give her advice on how to handle you, without even realizing it. Your relationship has stopped being a partnership. It's become a group project. And here's what you don't see until it's too late once outsiders are involved. You're no longer fighting just her. You're fighting her mother's judgment, her friends' opinions, her circle's gossip. And you can't defend yourself because you're not even in the room when they decide who you are. I knew a man in this situation. He wasn't a bad husband. He wasn't a bad father. His struggles were normal communication, stress, intimacy. But she told everyone. So when they argued, she came armed with a committee. My mom thinks you're controlling. Sarah says this is emotional abuse. Everyone agrees you're being unreasonable. He wasn't in a marriage anymore. He was on trial. And in that courtroom, he never got to speak. He was guilty by default. This is the death of intimacy. Because intimacy demands privacy. It demands a sacred space where two people can work through problems without outside interference. Once she makes that space public, you stop being her man. You become the villain in her story. And here's the cruel truth. Every time you let it slide, every time you forgive without consequence, you teach her it's safe to turn your relationship into public property. She can broadcast your flaws. She can expose your weaknesses. She can build her case against you in the court of public opinion, and you won't stop her. Not strength, weakness, not understanding, self-betrayal. And with every retelling, every whispered story, every post, your respect erodes until all that's left is her version of you, a caricature, a villain. This test is fatal for most men because it doesn't just destroy authority, it destroys the foundation of the relationship itself. Stay with me, because the truth is, none of these tests stand alone. They're connected, and once you fail one, the others follow. You might think these situations are separate, that each one is just a random moment. But here's the truth. Most men never see that we're all connected. They are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are tests, invisible tests. And every single one is asking the same question. Is this man strong enough to stand? Or can I walk right through him when you excuse her snapping at you because of hormones? You teach her your dignity is negotiable. When you laugh off her drunken insults, you teach her her contempt has no consequence. When you let her undermine you in front of your children, you teach her you're not the leader of your own home. When you smile through public humiliation, you teach her your pride has no value. And when you accept her turning your private life into public property, you teach her you have no boundaries at all. Piece by piece, test by test, forgiveness by forgiveness, you disappear. Not in an explosion, not in a dramatic collapse, but in silence. Slowly, quietly, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you're still there physically. But in her eyes, you don't exist anymore. You're a ghost, the man who pays bills, the man who fixes things, the man who drives the kids around. Useful. Yes. Respected. No. And here's the darkest part. She doesn't even want you to forgive these things. Deep down, in that primal part of her brain, she doesn't want a man who lets disrespect slide. She doesn't want a man she can walk over. She wants to feel the strength of a man who won't tolerate it. Every time you excuse it, you fail the test. Every time you swallow it, you prove you're not that man. That's why respect doesn't vanish in fire. It doesn't disappear with one big betrayal. Respect is chipped away in silence, moment by moment, cut by cut, until one day, there's nothing left. And here's the brutal truth you won't even notice it slipping. You'll tell yourself everything is fine. You'll think you're keeping the peace. Until suddenly, the peace is gone, the respect is gone, and the woman standing next to you doesn't admire you, doesn't look up to you, doesn't even see you, by then, it's too late, because once respect dies, almost nothing can bring it back. Stay with me, because the only thing that can stop this erosion, the only thing that can save your position as a man, are consequences. Real ones. And most men don't have the courage to enforce them. Most men hear this and panic. They think consequences mean yelling, slamming doors, or throwing ultimatums. But that's not strength. That's weakness disguised as power. Losing control is never the answer. Real strength is calm. Real strength is measured. Real strength is consequences delivered without emotion. Consequences are not punishments. They're not rage. They're not empty threats. They're simply the natural results of crossing a line that should never be crossed. And once you understand that, everything changes. For example, when she uses her hormones as an excuse to disrespect you, the consequence is distance, not shouting, not sulking, just distance. You step back. You become less available. And when she asks why, you tell her calmly, I don't allow anyone to speak to me that way. When you're ready to show respect, I'll be here. Until then, I've got other things to focus on. When she humiliates you while drunk, the consequence is immediate. Not the next morning when she's sober. Not after the apology. In that moment, you leave. You don't argue. You don't explain. You walk out. And when she sobers up, you state it plainly. If that's how you act when you drink, I won't be around you when you do. When she undermines you in front of the kids, the consequence is a serious private conversation. Calm, direct, non-negotiable. This stops now. When you cut me down in front of them, you don't just hurt me. You hurt this family. It does not happen again. When she humiliates you in public, the consequence is visible. Right there. You look her in the eye and say, that's inappropriate. Then you move on. Later, in private, you make it crystal clear public disrespect is a deal breaker. It never happens again. And when she makes your relationship public property, the boundary must be steel. Our business is ours. If you need to talk to someone, we go to a professional together. Otherwise, it stays between us. Do you see the difference? Real consequences are not emotional reactions. They are not about control. They are about showing, through action, that your respect is non-negotiable. Because here's the truth. If you set a boundary and then cave the moment she cries, apologizes, or promises to change, you're worse off than before. Now she knows your boundaries are fake. Now she knows your consequences are empty threats. And now she knows you're all talk, no action. And once she knows that, you've already lost. Stay with me, because the final part is the hardest truth of all. What happens if you've already failed these tests? The men who hold their ground, the ones whose women respect them, whose kids look up to them, whose friends never doubt them. They're not flawless. They make mistakes. They stumble. But they share one thing in common: they never negotiate respect. Respect isn't a gift. It isn't charity. It's not something you hope for. It's something you enforce every single day through your boundaries and your consequences. But here's the harsh reality. If you've been forgiving without consequence for months or years, she may have already decided who you are. Weak, safe to disrespect, a man she can step over without fear. And once you're in that category, every attempt to reclaim respect looks fake, looks forced, and most men, already drained by years of weakness, don't have the strength to survive that storm. That's why prevention is everything. That's why the very first time disrespect appears, you answer it. Calm, direct, immediate. Because the longer you wait, the harder it is to climb back. But maybe you recognize yourself right now. Maybe you've already been that man, the one who forgives, the one who thinks patience will save him. If that's you, your only way forward is consistency, boundaries, and the courage to walk away if respect doesn't return. Because here's the truth, if you're not willing to lose the relationship, you've already lost your place in it. Every time you forgive without consequences, you bleed out your masculinity drop by drop until nothing is left. Don't be that man. Don't disappear in silence. Don't let yourself become invisible in your own life. Be the man who stands tall. Be the man who enforces consequences. Be the man who would rather walk alone with respect than live together in contempt. Because in the end, that is the only kind of man she can truly respect. And if you're still here, listening to this, it means you already know you needed to hear it. So don't just nod and move on. Take action. Start today. If this hit you hard, follow this channel. Drop a comment below about the moment that woke you up. And subscribe so you don't miss the next time I rip the mask off the lies you've been told about love, respect, and being a man. Because this isn't entertainment. This is survival.